Hi, I'm Ashley Hammond.
And I'm Locke Hammond.
We're married.
We run a business together.
And we homeschool our 4 kids.
That makes us sound a little crazy.
I think people might think we're a little crazy.
Well, through all that crazy, we're here to help you blaze your own trail through a world designed for conformity.
And break the chains holding you back from living an uncommon life.
This is Trailblazers and Chainbreakers. All right, so here's the quote. It's actually a C.S. Lewis quote, who is a very good author. And it says, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start from where you are and change the ending." What do you got? Tell us how that makes you feel. I think you said that to me once.
I did. It makes you think about how so many of us have so much regret about the past and all these things that parenting comes to mind for me. You always hear when you're a kid, like the first one has it different than the last, and it doesn't matter how many kids you have in between. But you always think about how much regret you have of like your parenting style when you first started to where it is now. And we have 4 kids, so we think about how different that is. You can't change that. So what is the point in feeling guilt and shame about that? You can't go back and change things that have happened. You can only change the way things are going to be in the future. And what I think that means is constantly working on yourself and constantly putting effort in to be better in every way. And like you're going to have setbacks, which I thought for the longest time were not good, until I recently had someone say to me, "No, setbacks are good. It's a sign that you're leveling up, and leveling up means that you're getting better. You go back a little bit and then you go up more. You go back a little bit and then you go up more. It's not like you just like keep going forward and in growth. You have to come back. It's like bouncing back and forth, but then you keep going up more. So start where you are, wherever that is. And for everybody, it's going to be different. We're all in a different part of our journey. It's just not obsessing about whatever happened in the past or whatever mistakes you made in the past, and accepting and loving yourself for where you are now and pushing through and pushing forward.
Yeah. We just had a conversation about letting stuff go.
Yeah.
The phrase we use is "let that shit go." And, it's not, there may be times where holding on to, you use the word regret, which is a great word. There may be some times where holding on to a regret serves you as a reminder, but it only serves you if you take that reminder and do something with it in the present. Regret was the big word I had in my mind to talk about. And well that my default kind of mindset is regret, about whether it's regret or guilt or they're very similar emotions, right? Thinking about all the things in the past that I could have done better. And I go back there very easily. And what I realized is if I'm back living in the past, there's no one living my life in the present. Right. Yeah. That sounds like a cliche. Well, it is a cliche, I guess, but in the sense that, so here's a couple of examples. I wish I had treated that person better, whether it's you or one of the kids or someone else, years ago or whatever it may be, but I'm still making mistakes now. Maybe I'm still making some of the same mistakes. So if I'm living back then, that's not helping my relationships now. And if I'm going to use it to help my relationships now, then great. But I found that a lot of times I'll go back and say, I wish I had done this. Or the other one for me is, I wish I had worked harder. I wasted so much potential not doing this or that. I could have worked harder then and been such a success, right? Sports or business or school, all areas that I had a ton of potential, but at different times didn't reach my full potential because I didn't work as hard as I could. Well, I realized actually fairly recently, all this time spent back then in my head, wishing I had worked harder, was time that could have been spent now working harder on my goals now. And I was repeating the same mistakes, and I'm still repeating some of them. I'm getting better at working harder on my goals now instead of living in regret. Because I could have been such a better basketball player. I could have made so much more money in business. I could have treated so-and-so better, or not yelled at my kid when I did this. But if I'm still making those mistakes now, like, that's the stupidest spiral to go down.
Yeah.
And I think it's all a distraction unless you're going to use it to fix something.
Yeah.
And when we talked about let that shit go, we kind of talked about that too. And I think the important piece that you said, and maybe you can talk a little bit more about this piece. The important piece that you said in the let that shit go conversation that we just had was about being kind to yourself and forgiving yourself. And I think that's important. If we look at the quote, you can't go back and change the beginning. You can only start where you are and change the ending. But part of that is you have to forgive yourself for the beginning. Yeah. For sure. Do you have more about that? Can you talk more about being kind to yourself, forgiving yourself?
Well, I can go into the health aspect. So I think about my younger self and what I did to my body, and I did terrible things to my body. And I mean, it wasn't only me, but like from childhood, just being on lots of medications, and then like teenage years to young adult, being on several drugs that I'm not proud of. And I can go back and say, well, you know, my body isn't working correctly now because of all the things that I did to it. And while that is true, there's many other factors that go with that. And I can't beat myself up of things that I've done in the past. And to be honest with you, would I want any of my kids to do the things that I've done? No. But I would not be doing this right now, having this conversation with you right now, if I hadn't done those things, because that was part of my journey. That was part of my lessons. That was part of me becoming who I am. And so I can get really mad at myself and hard on myself for doing a bunch of ridiculous stuff that I did, but that's not serving anything. Like, I can't go back and take it away. I don't want to sit and guilt and shame myself for things that I did, because that's just making bigger issues right now. And in reality, it's kind of a beautiful thing, because who I am right now is awesome. And I wouldn't be awesome. Like, I would be awesome, but in a different way if I hadn't done those things. So I just need to love and accept myself and the journey and the process of how my body is healing through all the stuff from the past.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's a powerful realization. I think, you know, we've had conversations, you know, you're talking about stupid decisions you made as a teenager and a young adult, drugs, alcohol, just stupid decisions as well.
Yeah.
And you would never want our kids to do that. And I agree with you. And there was a lot of stupid stuff I did too that I would never want my kids to do. But I think you mentioned you wouldn't be as awesome. I would say you wouldn't be as wonderful a mother. There's no doubt in my mind, and that's not a judgment of you. You know, it's a very loving comment. Because now you can be the kind of mother who says, with real honesty, when each one individual kid is ready, maybe not everything, but let me, you know, the drugs conversation. Let's have a conversation about drugs. Here's something I did, and here's how it screwed me up. That's a different story to a kid than, you know, I heard a story on the news about some kid in San Francisco who blah, 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 blah. I mean, they're like, yeah, whatever. And how many parents don't even have the conversation, first of all? And then of the parents who have the conversation, not many parents can actually have a story about them. And that's not a good reason to do it. So you can tell your kids not to. Yeah. But I don't know, like, I'm not excited for that conversation, but I'm proud of the fact that, you know, you're a wonderful mother, but I'm also proud of the fact that you're going to be able to have a conversation that almost no other mothers are willing to or are able to have. And then the honesty of that conversation is what's going to make it, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, make it so beneficial to our kids.
Yeah. Well, it's real life. I mean, we can't, as much as we want to, especially in the world today, we want to keep our kids in this bubble. We want to keep them sheltered, but that doesn't serve anybody. They're going to be out in the big world one day. And if you keep them sheltered and hidden under a rock in this loving bubble in your home, then they don't know the reality of the world that they live in.
Yeah, and good intentions, but
yeah, and that's going to be, I mean, it's going to be scary anyway, but it's going to be even more scary if you don't have stories to tell them. And we don't have to go too deep into this, but yeah.
So I think, we're talking about our kids, which, this is something I want this quote, this kind of conversation around the quote of your story. The quote doesn't actually say your story, but it's directly in my mind. It's directly connected to a quote or an affirmation, or I don't know where it came from, but I am the author of my own story. Mm-hmm. I'm going to read the quote one more time. You can go back and change the beginning, but you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending.
Yeah.
And, that's coming from a famous author. And I think it is directly related to this idea of being the author of your own story. And, you're talking about our kids. This is something I want our kids to understand. This is something you and I understand, but still struggle with sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's a couple aspects of this, the roles that we're playing in the stories that we tell ourselves through our life, is one aspect, which we'll touch on, but also just this idea that you're in charge of your life. Everything you attract to you, everything that comes to you, you've attracted to you, good and bad. Mm-hmm. And, good luck trying to tell somebody who got assaulted or abused that they attracted that to them. I'm not trying to say it's their fault, right? But if we leave that kind of stuff out of it, just so we can have a conversation about it without going too deep, all the bad stuff in my life I've attracted to me. And I know that. And sometimes I don't want to take accountability for that. That's a whole nother topic. But if I take accountability for that, I can change the story. Yeah. Maybe it's slowly, but I can change the story. And I think almost everyone loves stories about comebacks and coming back from adversity. And that can be the story you write for yourself. Don't get too stuck in the adversity so that you keep experiencing adversity that you have to overcome, right?
Yeah.
But we're in charge of that, writing our own story. And if you look at it from the idea of an author scripting out a story, you can decide what your hero does, and you're your own hero. And I think that's a really powerful lesson that I want the kids to learn. The other aspect that we've talked about before is, I just mentioned these stories that we tell ourselves, these roles that we play in our stories. When we met, you were telling yourself a story and you had a role that you were playing in your own story. I was telling myself a story and I had a role that I played in my story, and our stories happened to match up perfectly.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
I mean, sure.
You want me to talk about it?
Sure.
Well, so I'll talk about me. And just as an example, we're still telling different stories now. But when we met, the story I was telling was the way you phrased it many times is a hero, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be a hero. It obviously came from probably self-confidence issues and wanting to be my own hero, but projecting that outward. I don't need to go that deep, I guess. But the story I was telling myself and the role I wanted to play was I wanted to be this image of perfect. I wanted to come off as a hero with no flaws. And I did my best to do that. And I even started to believe it myself.
Yeah.
And, that tied into your story where you were overcoming adversity and you're a strong ass woman and you've always been a strong ass woman, but you
wanted to be saved.
Wanted to be rescued. Yeah. You wanted a hero. And so not just romantically, but also just someone to, whether it's romantic or not, save you, rescue you. And so our two stories, which have good qualities to them, but also have downside, bad qualities, happen to overlap perfectly. And I think that's an important aspect of this conversation too. The stories we're telling ourselves, the roles that we're playing in our own stories are worth examining. All of this victimhood mentality going on in the world today. There are true victims. There are people who horrible things have happened to. And then you and I both know a lot of people, I don't want to say a lot, a number of people in our personal lives who wouldn't know what to do if they didn't have something to be the victim of, and actually go out and seek things or people to make villains, make things up in their mind, probably even believing their own crap.
Believing it.
And being wronged, whether it's somebody cut me off in traffic and that I'm just going to let that ruin my day. Or if it's something completely made up or totally different. This idea that I need to be a victim and I don't know what to do if I'm not a victim. I don't know if I can't blame someone else, I'm going to end up having to take accountability, I think is the fear without them realizing that that's a fear.
Yeah.
But, there's all kinds of stories that people are telling themselves and the roles that they're playing in their own stories. It's worth examining in your own life.
Yeah. Well, society is just feeding into that now. Cause I think about myself 11 years ago and, I was playing the victim, but I see the way parenthood is nowadays, the way parenting is, and society is just feeding into, people being upset about everything. And I mean, that is a rabbit hole in itself. And so everybody is hurt by everything, every little thing. But I think about for myself, like I was the victim for a while. I thought like, woe was me. I remember like everything was everybody else's fault. I didn't take responsibility for anything. It was me. I'm a grown up and I'm blaming all of my stuff on everybody else around me. And you were talking about how like when we first started dating, like, yeah, I did feel like I needed to be saved. I felt like I needed to be taken care of. I didn't feel like I was strong enough, confident enough to take care of myself. And you played that role awesome for me until I didn't need that anymore. I don't think I ever really did need that. And I think that's the beauty of it is I felt like I needed that. You played that for me, but I really didn't need that. And then there was one point in me where I realized I didn't need that. I needed to take care of myself. I needed to love myself. I needed to be my own hero. And we all need to be our own hero. There's nobody that is going to take care of us. There's nobody that's going to make us feel better. There's nobody in this world that can do that for us except for us. And
I agree.
So
I think you did need that at one point though. I think it's what you needed to experience in your journey to realize that you, like you just said, the next realization that you wanted to be your own hero.
Yeah.
I think you needed to experience that because you thought you wanted it. You thought you wanted a hero to rescue you. And then pretty quickly you realized, I want to do this myself. I want to save myself. So I in that sense, I think you did need that. I don't think you needed rescuing. I think you could have done it from the beginning, but you needed to get to the point where you wanted to be your own hero.
Yeah. True.
Cool. All right. I have one more thing I wanted to talk about, which ties directly into this, and then we can move on to the next piece. Okay. So I saw a post online and I wrote it down. Most people would rather be frustrated with things outside their control than be frustrated by their lack of action and discipline. And And I think it ties exactly into what we were talking about. And there was a pretty interesting conversation going on in the comments of that post. I think it's referring to frustration about the world and what's going on instead of working on themselves. But I think it applies to what we're talking about. The past is out of your control. What's in your control is kicking ass in the present.
Yeah.
The world is out of your control. What's in your control is owning your shit and fixing it now, instead of looking back 10 years from now and having regrets. And, stop sitting in the past, I guess, is kind of what I got out of that.
Well, I've recently heard a couple people tell me that, friends of theirs, or people that they know. And I mean, a few people told me this, and I already knew this, but most of the population knows what is underneath. They just don't want to uncover it. They kind of want to stay numb to what's going on, and not just in the world now, but what's going on inside. They just want to kind of ignore it and just kind of like chuck along with life, living an average life. If you think about it, most people are okay with being average. And like, if you're okay with that, like, who am I to say that average isn't good? Like, if you want to live an average life, that's fine. For me, that's not enough. And I don't think there are a lot of people out there that think that way. Because uncovering stuff, doing the work is not easy. It is not easy. And it's a daily thing. It's not just something you do for a week and you're like, okay, I'm good. Like, it's years, it's for the rest of your life. And
it can be scary.
Yeah, it can be scary. And I know for myself, I say this a lot, but once I know what I know, I can't unknow that. Like, I can't just go back. And like, if some people can, that's fine, but I know what I know, and there's no turning back for me. Like, there's only moving forward. There's no, okay, I'm done, I give up. And some days I do feel like that. Some days I'm like, screw this, I don't want to do this. This is too hard. I think like that sometimes, but I know even when I'm in that bad spot, I know that that's not true. That's not true for me. There's no looking back, because I can't unknow what I know. So
I think what you just said was, I hate the phrase truth bomb. Everybody says that. That was incredibly profound. Whether you're talking about, I brought up this quote that was referring to what's going on in the world. Whether you're talking about what's going on in the world, or whether you're talking about what's going on in your own head, what you just said, and I'll get the wording wrong, but the idea that most people know, but they don't want, they have suspicions, but they don't want to dig deeper and find out the actual truth, because they're scared that it will, like you said, that they'll never be able to unknow it, that it will change their life if they know what's actually happening in the world right now, that it will change their life if they know what's actually going on in their head, what's causing them to have fears or lash out or live in fear. Can we kill that one? Yeah, question.
This is a good question. Name one thing that makes you nervous or uncomfortable, and explain why.
Well, I'm not, what we just talked about. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not one of those people. I am looking for the truth, both in what's going on in the world right now, but especially in myself. But I am nervous, and I don't know about, I guess uncomfortable works too, scared of what I might find the deeper I dig in both places, the world and myself. But let's keep it on us so that we don't go down a rabbit hole. Inner work is something that I'm willing to do, but at the same time scares me, right? What if I don't like what I find? What if I'm looking for an answer as to so procrastination, why do I procrastinate? What if I don't like the answer once I dig 11 levels deep? What if I don't like the person that I am in certain ways? But there was a point in my life during our relationship where I realized I didn't love myself. I didn't even like myself. And yeah, there were redeeming qualities. that I had, but there was not self-love and like deeply missing self-love.
Yeah.
That was scary. That was really uncomfortable to admit to myself, never mind to you. And it was really scary to say, okay, now what? Like, what the hell do I do about this?
Yeah.
Inner work, healing, growth, it's scary. I think that's a lot of the reason why people don't do it. I think the two big reasons are, one, talking about victimhood in the world today. Mm-hmm. I don't have an excuse if I actually take 100% accountability and go to work on myself. I can't blame it on other people anymore. But then the other piece is, once you get past that, sometimes it can scare the shit out of you what you're going to find in your own head.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I've had that experience, not liking what I find, and I still have the fear.
And it like may sound silly, but a lot of people are honestly like afraid of being happy. It's scary to them. What does being truly full of pure love and pure happiness, like, what does that mean? We're taught not to be happy. We're taught to be afraid. We're taught to be, stressed out. We live in a very stressed world. Be stressed, be stressed. It's good to be stressed and exhausted and overwhelmed. And you just see all these hot mess mom, like, that's normal. And that's like the way that we should be. And it's okay.
Like drinking at 11 in the morning.
Yeah. And drinking in like a sippy cup.
I'll call that out. I'll call that out. You didn't want to go there. I'll say it. Drinking at 11 in the morning is not good. Having to pop pills before you go to work is not good.
Yeah. Don't even get me started on that.
You got me worked up.
But like normalizing these things. So I think what is going on is people are really afraid to uncover stuff, but they're also really afraid to be happy. They're really afraid to be themselves because, like, what would other people think?
I have a question about that for you. Do you think they're afraid to be happy, or do you think they're afraid of the hard work that's going to come, or that's going to have to come to get that growth done?
I honestly think all of the above. Yeah. I think they're afraid of the work. I think they're afraid of what they'll uncover. I think they're afraid of, what if I'm happy? Because, like, what does that mean? Because they don't have anything else to blame anymore. The only thing you can blame is yourself and look within. And that's scary. That's really scary. So I think it's a lot deeper than all the things that I'm naming.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, so I know it's not either or, it's a lot of factors. Go ahead.
Yeah. I know for myself, the answer to this question, what makes me nervous or uncomfortable, and explain why. I think and I've said this many times, I think being raw and being authentic and being me, because I'm putting myself out there in a way that most people don't. Like, there is no hiding. I'm not hiding. I'm not pretending. I'm being who I am. And I think doing that is hard. And it makes me extremely uncomfortable. And it makes me extremely nervous still every single time. Because, there's going to be people that don't like me. There's going to be people that look at me and they're like, who is this girl? Like, and that's okay. And I need to be okay with that. Like, I don't like everybody out there in the world. There's people that I see that I'm like, and that's okay. Like, we don't need to be liked and accepted by everybody. Yeah. And I think just constantly reminding myself, like, actually, you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And the world still goes on. So. Yeah.
I think that's a common one. I think the fear of not being accepted is very, very common. I mean, it's hardwired into our brain. It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
If we take everything back to like the caveman days, or even after that, if you were not accepted by your tribe, if you were an outcast, you were left on your own, you're not going to survive. You're not going to be able to get enough food. You're not going to be able to get shelter. I mean, back then it was literally life or death to be accepted.
And like, for so long, like, that's all I wanted. And for so long, I was willing to do what everybody around me wanted me to do. It was like I was a different person for everybody. It was like, okay, you want me to do that? Cool, I'll do that. Okay, you tell me to do that. It was like, you tell me to blink and I'll blink. And now, like, not to be rude, I don't really give a shit. And like, I'm okay being the 1%. Like, I'm cool with being the 1%. Like, I'm cool hearing all these ideas from all these people telling me things that I should be doing or things I shouldn't be doing, and being like, no, dude, like, doesn't sound good to me. And if you don't like that, like, and it took me a while to get there. It took me a really long time to get there. And I think that there needs to be more people like that. There needs to be more people that don't parent because their mother-in-law tells them that they need to parent a certain way, or, you know, they need to have a marriage like this, or they need to be an alcoholic because their friends are an alcoholic. Like, I just see so many people just living their life according to what other people expect of them or want them to, instead of like honestly taking a step back and being like, this doesn't feel good to me. Asking themselves, does this feel good to me? Does this feel like I'm living my true best self? Am I doing things according to my values and what I want from my life? I don't even think most people know what their values are or what they want for their life. Like, if you ask anybody where they want to be in 2 years, they're like, I don't know, surviving. and so that's not talking bad about anybody. It's just saying, I just don't think people ask themselves these questions. And they're important questions.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to what you talked about. I think the word you used was staying numb. People who don't want to open their eyes and they want to stay numb. They want to, it's more comfortable to ignore things like this. You know, you're right. I don't think most people do have goals for where they want to be in X number of years. They haven't stopped to think about it, right? They haven't given themselves a couple of minutes without constant stimulation, whether that's friends or TV or the phone or the kids or work or whatever.
Yeah.
To actually think about that, because it's more comfortable to just go with the flow than it is to spend time thinking about how what you might want is different than what is normal, we'll say in air quotes, normal.
Yeah.
I think that fits right in with everything we're saying.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that was good.
Cool. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening, for watching, and we'll see you next week at 8:30.
Yeah. Thanks, friends.
Hi, friends. If you're enjoying the show, would you please leave a quick rating or review on Apple Podcasts for us? Doing this helps more people find the podcast, which means even more people can benefit from the conversations. We really appreciate you and your time, and thanks, as always, for listening.